Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished checking the last power cable in the reactor room. The big machines hummed quietly around him, their blue lights blinking in steady patterns. He had been working on Harmony Station for 3 months now, and he still loved his job. The floating space station was huge, with long metal corridors and rooms full of computers and equipment. It was his job to keep everything running smoothly. Jake was 25 years old and came from a small town in Ohio. He had brown hair and kind eyes, and he always tried to help people when they needed it. His friends back home said he was too nice for his own good, but Jake did not think being nice was a bad thing. On the space station, being nice was even more important because people from many different worlds lived and worked together. Today was special because alien visitors were coming to the station. Jake had heard the other workers talking about them all week. The aliens were called Zephyrians, and they were coming to meet with human leaders. Jake did not know much about aliens, but he was excited to see them. He had only seen pictures before, and the pictures showed tall, beautiful beings with skin that changed colors. As Jake put away his tools, he heard voices in the corridor outside. He looked at his watch and saw it was dinner time. His stomach was making hungry noises, so he decided to go to the cafeteria. The cafeteria was on the other side of the station, and Jake would have to walk through several corridors to get there. Jake opened the door to the reactor room and stepped into the corridor. The lights were bright here, and the air smelled clean and fresh. He could hear the low hum of the station's engines and the soft sounds of people talking in the distance. As he walked, he passed other workers heading home after their shifts. Some of them were humans like him, but others were aliens from different worlds. Jake nodded hello to everyone he met. When Jake reached the main corridor that led to the cafeteria, he saw a group of people standing near the entrance. But these were not ordinary people. They were tall and graceful with skin that sparkled like jewels. Their skin changed colors as Jake watched, shifting from blue to green to silver. These had to be the Zephyrians everyone was talking about. The aliens wore flowing clothes that looked like they were made of light itself. They moved in a way that reminded Jake of dancers, smooth and careful with every step. At the front of the group was the tallest alien, a female who carried herself like a queen. Her skin was mostly purple with streaks of gold, and her large dark eyes looked at everything with great interest. Jake slowed down as he got closer to the group. He did not want to bother them or get in their way. But as he watched, he saw that the tall female alien was having trouble with the cafeteria door. The door was supposed to open by itself when someone got close, but Jake knew it had been broken since yesterday. The maintenance team was supposed to fix it, but they had been too busy getting ready for the alien visitors. The female alien stood in front of the door, clearly confused. She pressed her hand against it and tried to push it, but nothing happened. The other aliens behind her watched with concern. Jake could see that they did not understand how human doors worked. Without thinking about it, Jake stepped forward. He had been raised to help people when they needed it, and it did not matter to him that this person was an alien from another world. He reached for the manual override button on the side of the doorframe and pressed it. The door slid open with a soft whoosh sound. "After you, ma'am," Jake said, stepping back and holding the door open with his hand. He gave the alien female a polite smile and nodded his head the way his mother had taught him to do when meeting important people. The moment Jake spoke, something amazing happened. The female alien's skin suddenly blazed with bright gold and purple colors, much brighter than before. Her large eyes went wide, and she stared at Jake as if she had never seen anything like him. She said something in a language that sounded like music, with lots of flowing sounds and high notes. The other aliens behind her began talking quickly in their musical language. Their skin colors changed rapidly, flashing through blues and greens and yellows. They all turned to look at Jake with expressions of amazement on their faces. Jake felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He had just opened a door, which was a normal thing to do. He did not understand why the aliens seemed so excited about it. The female alien walked through the doorway slowly, never taking her eyes off Jake. As she passed by him, she said something else in her language, and her voice sounded very serious and important. "You're welcome," Jake said, not knowing what else to say. He let the door close behind the group of aliens and followed them into the cafeteria. But instead of going to get food, the aliens stood together in a circle, talking quickly and looking back at Jake every few seconds. Jake decided to ignore them and get his dinner. He was hungry, and he did not want to think too much about alien behavior. Maybe they were just surprised by human politeness. He got his food from the serving machines and found a table near the window where he could look out at the stars. As Jake ate his dinner, he noticed that the female alien kept looking at him from across the room. Every time he glanced in her direction, she was watching him with those intense dark eyes. Her skin stayed bright gold and purple, and she seemed to be talking about him with the other aliens. Jake finished his meal quickly and left the cafeteria. As he walked back to his quarters, he wondered what the aliens had been discussing. But he was tired from his long day of work, and he soon forgot about the strange encounter. He had no idea that his simple act of kindness had just changed his life forever. The next morning, Jake woke up early as always and got ready for work. He put on his blue maintenance uniform and grabbed his tool belt from the hook by his door. Today he needed to check the air filters in the science section of the station. It was not exciting work, but Jake liked keeping things clean and working properly. As Jake walked through the corridors toward the science section, he saw the tall female alien from yesterday. She was standing near a window looking out at the stars. When she saw Jake coming, her skin immediately turned bright gold and purple again. She watched him walk past with those large dark eyes, and Jake felt uncomfortable under her stare. "Good morning," Jake said politely, the way he would greet anyone on the station. The alien said something back in her musical language, but Jake could not understand it. He smiled and kept walking, thinking that maybe she was just being friendly. But as the days went by, Jake began to notice something strange. Everywhere he went on the station, the female alien seemed to be there too. When he was fixing a broken light in the main corridor, she appeared and watched him work. When he was cleaning the water recycling system, she stood nearby with several other aliens, all of them staring at him. At first, Jake thought it was just coincidence. Harmony Station was big, but not so big that people could not run into each other often. Maybe the aliens were just curious about how humans worked. But after a week of seeing the female alien everywhere he went, Jake started to feel like she was following him. Dr. Lisa Parker worked in the science section as a xenobiologist. She studied alien life forms and helped with communication between different species. Jake had talked to her a few times when he was fixing equipment in her lab. She was a smart woman with red hair and green eyes, and she always seemed to know interesting facts about the aliens who visited the station. One day, while Jake was replacing a broken computer screen in Dr. Parker's lab, she mentioned something that made him worried. "The Zephyrians have been asking questions about you," Dr. Parker said as she watched Jake work. She was sitting at her desk looking through reports on her computer. Jake almost dropped his screwdriver. "Questions about me? What kind of questions?" "They want to know about your family history, your achievements, whether you have ever been in battles. They also asked if you are married or have a girlfriend." Dr. Parker looked puzzled. "It's very unusual. Usually aliens ask general questions about human culture, not about specific individuals." Jake felt his face get hot. "I don't understand. I barely know them. I only talked to one of them once." "Which one?" Dr. Parker asked. "The tall female. Their leader, I think. I held a door open for her in the cafeteria last week." Dr. Parker raised her eyebrows. "Just held a door open?" "Yes, that's all. The automatic door was broken, so I used the manual override." Jake finished installing the new screen and tested it to make sure it worked. "Why would they care about that?" "I don't know," Dr. Parker said slowly. "But I think you should be careful. Alien cultures can be very different from ours. Something that seems normal to us might mean something completely different to them." That evening, when Jake returned to his quarters after work, he found something strange waiting for him. Outside his door was a small package wrapped in what looked like silver cloth. The package was sitting on the floor, and there was no note or explanation with it. Jake picked up the package and took it inside his room. He sat on his bed and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a crystal formation that was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was about the size of his hand, with many pointed edges that caught the light and threw rainbow colors on the walls. When Jake held it up to his ear, he could hear a soft humming sound coming from inside the crystal. The next day, Jake found another gift outside his door. This time it was a flower, but not like any flower from Earth. The petals were blue and silver, and they seemed to glow with their own light. The flower did not smell like Earth flowers either. It had a sweet scent that reminded Jake of rain and fresh air. Jake was starting to feel worried. Someone was leaving him gifts, and he had a good idea who it was. He thought about throwing the gifts away, but they were beautiful, and he did not want to be rude. Maybe gift-giving was just a normal part of Zephyrian culture. On Friday morning, Jake found a third gift. This one was larger than the others and much more impressive. It was a piece of technology that he did not recognize, about the size of a book but much thinner. When Jake touched it, the device came to life and projected a three-dimensional image in the air above it. The image showed flowing text in alien writing that moved and danced like living things. Jake could not read the writing, but it was beautiful to watch. The letters changed colors and formed patterns that looked like art. Jake guessed it might be some kind of poem or story. That afternoon, Commander Helen Rodriguez called Jake to her office. Commander Rodriguez was the military leader of Harmony Station, a serious woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. Jake had only talked to her a few times before, usually when there was a problem with the station's systems. "Morrison, sit down," Commander Rodriguez said when Jake entered her office. Her desk was covered with papers and computer screens, and she looked tired. "I need to ask you about the Zephyrian delegation." Jake sat in the chair across from her desk. "Yes, ma'am. Ambassador Veltara has made an unusual request. She wants you to be assigned as her personal liaison for the rest of their visit." Commander Rodriguez looked at Jake with confusion. "Do you have any idea why she would ask for you specifically?" Jake felt his stomach drop. Ambassador Veltara must be the tall female alien who had been following him around. "I don't know, ma'am. I only met her once." "Tell me exactly what happened when you met her." Jake explained about the broken door and how he had helped the ambassador get into the cafeteria. As he talked, Commander Rodriguez's expression grew more puzzled. "That's it? You held a door open for her?" "Yes, ma'am. That's all I did." Commander Rodriguez leaned back in her chair and rubbed her forehead. "This doesn't make sense. Aliens don't usually request specific humans as liaisons unless there's been some kind of important interaction." She looked at Jake carefully. "Are you sure you're telling me everything?" "Yes, ma'am. I just held the door open and said after you." It was basic politeness. "Basic politeness," Commander Rodriguez repeated slowly. "Well, whatever you did, it made a strong impression. I'm going to approve her request, but I want you to be very careful. If anything unusual happens, report it to me immediately." As Jake left the commander's office, he felt more confused than ever. He had no idea what he had gotten himself into, but he had a feeling that his simple act of kindness was about to make his life much more complicated. Being Ambassador Veltara's personal liaison turned out to be the strangest job Jake had ever had. On his first day in the new position, he was told to report to the diplomatic quarters where the Zephyrian delegation was staying. Jake put on his best uniform and tried to prepare himself for whatever might happen. When Jake arrived at the diplomatic section, Ambassador Veltara was waiting for him. She was even more impressive up close than she had been from a distance. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, and her skin shimmered with colors that seemed to move like liquid metal. When she saw Jake, her skin immediately blazed with bright gold and purple, and she made a sound that might have been singing. "Good morning, Ambassador," Jake said, trying to sound professional. "I'm here to help with whatever you need." Veltara responded in her musical language, speaking for several minutes while her skin flashed different colors. Jake had no idea what she was saying, but she seemed very excited about something. One of the other Zephyrians stepped forward and activated a translation device. "The ambassador says she is honored by your presence and wishes to know if you found her gifts." "Acceptable," the translator said in a mechanical voice. Jake felt his face get red. "The gifts are very beautiful, thank you. But I'm not sure why you're giving them to me." When this was translated, Veltara made more musical sounds and her skin turned even brighter. The translator spoke again. "The ambassador says your modesty only proves your worthiness. She asks if you would like to hear the song she composed about your great deeds." "My great deeds?" Jake asked, confused. "I haven't done any great deeds." But Veltara had already begun to sing. Her voice was beautiful, rising and falling like a bird song, but much more complex. The other Zephyrians joined in, creating harmonies that made Jake's chest vibrate. Even though he could not understand the words, the song was clearly about him. The translator tried to keep up, speaking over the music. She sings of the mighty Jake Morrison, opener of sealed barriers, master of forbidden passages, whose kindness flows like starlight across the void, the mechanical voice said. She tells of how he faced the great metal wall that had defeated her, and with his mysterious powers he made the wall obey his will. Jake stared in amazement. They were singing about him opening a door, a simple broken door that anyone could have fixed. But to hear Veltara sing about it, Jake sounded like some kind of superhero. When the song ended, Veltara stepped forward and presented Jake with something that made his eyes go wide. It was a knife, but not like any knife he had ever seen. The blade seemed to be made of crystal, and it glowed with its own inner light. The handle was covered with what looked like precious stones, and the whole weapon was clearly very old and very valuable. The ambassador presents you with the Blade of Stars, a weapon carried by her family for 1,000 years, the translator said. It is a great honor that she would not give to anyone unworthy. Jake took the knife carefully, afraid he might drop it. I can't accept something this valuable. This should stay with your family. When this was translated, Veltara's skin flashed bright red for a moment, then returned to gold and purple. She spoke quickly to the translator, who said, The ambassador insists that you must accept it. To refuse would be difficult to understand. Jake decided not to argue. He thanked Veltara and promised to take good care of the knife. But as the days went by, the gifts kept coming. Every morning, Jake found something new outside his quarters. There were more crystals, more glowing flowers, pieces of alien art, and things he could not even identify. The situation became more complicated when other humans started to notice what was happening. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked in the communications department, and she was a friend of Jake's. Amy was a cheerful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, and she often asked Jake to help her move heavy equipment or fix broken communication devices. One afternoon, Amy asked Jake to help her install a new radio antenna on the outside of the station. It was normal work that they had done together many times before. But when they were putting on their spacesuits to go outside, Ambassador Veltara appeared with several other Zephyrians. Veltara's skin was flashing angry red and orange colors, and she was speaking very loudly in her musical language. The other Zephyrians seemed upset too, and they all kept looking at Amy with hostile expressions. What's going on? Amy asked, looking worried. Before Jake could answer, Veltara stepped forward and spoke directly to Amy in broken English. Her voice was usually soft and musical, but now it sounded harsh and threatening. You interfere with bonding ritual, Veltara said, her large dark eyes fixed on Amy. Jake Morrison is mine to court. You will stay away or face consequences. Amy looked at Jake with wide eyes. Bonding ritual? Courting? Jake, what is she talking about? Jake felt his face burn with embarrassment. I have no idea. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. But Veltara was not finished. She pulled out a long staff that seemed to be made of the same glowing crystal as the knife she had given Jake. She pointed it at Amy and began to speak in her own language, her voice rising and falling in what sounded like a challenge. The translation device activated. Ambassador Veltara challenges Lieutenant Amy Foster to single combat for the right to court Jake Morrison. The challenge will be decided by traditional Zephyrian combat rules. Amy stepped backward, looking scared. Combat? I don't want to fight anyone. Jake, tell her I'm just your friend. Jake tried to calm everyone down, but Veltara was already beginning what could only be described as a war dance. She moved in a circle around Amy, spinning her crystal staff and chanting in her musical language. Her skin blazed with bright red and orange colors, and the other Zephyrians began to sing along with her chant. Other people in the corridor stopped to watch the strange scene. Humans and aliens alike stared in amazement as the tall Zephyrian ambassador danced around the frightened communications officer. Some people took out their phones to record what was happening. Finally, station security arrived to break up the confrontation. Chief of Security Bob Harris was a big man with a stern voice, and he was not impressed by alien dancing. That's enough, Harris shouted. Ambassador, please return to your quarters. Lieutenant Foster, you're safe now. Veltara stopped dancing and spoke to the translator. The ambassador says the challenge has been issued and cannot be withdrawn. Lieutenant Foster must either accept combat or acknowledge her defeat. This is crazy, Amy said, looking at Jake. I don't even like you that way. We're just friends. But Veltara did not seem to understand the concept of friendship between males and females. Her skin continued to flash angry colors, and she kept pointing her staff at Amy while chanting what sounded like threats. Chief Harris called for backup, and soon the corridor was full of security officers trying to calm down an angry alien ambassador In the confusion, Jake managed to pull Amy to safety behind a security barrier. "Jake, you have to do something," Amy said. "She's going to hurt someone if this keeps up." Jake looked at Veltara, who was now surrounded by security officers but still holding her crystal staff and glaring at Amy. He had no idea how his simple act of politeness had led to this diplomatic crisis, but he knew he had to find a way to fix it before someone got hurt. The problem was, Jake had no idea how to communicate with an alien who seemed to think that holding a door open was some kind of marriage proposal. The next morning, Jake woke up feeling nervous about the demonstration. He put on his best uniform and practiced what he was going to say to the Zephyrian delegation. Dr. Parker had helped him prepare a simple explanation of how doors worked, using words that would be easy for the translation device to handle. The demonstration was set up in the main conference room, which had several different types of doors that Jake could show to the aliens. There were automatic doors, manual doors, sliding doors, and even an old-fashioned door with hinges. Dr. Parker had also brought tools and computer displays to help explain the technology. When Jake arrived at the conference room, he found Ambassador Veltara waiting with her entire delegation. She was wearing a beautiful outfit made of flowing crystal fabric, and her skin was glowing with bright gold and purple colors. When she saw Jake, she made musical sounds that the translator said were greetings of joy and anticipation. "Commander." Rodriguez opened the meeting by explaining that there had been a cultural misunderstanding between humans and Zephyrians. She said that Jake wanted to demonstrate some human technology to help clear up the confusion. Ambassador Veltara listened carefully, but she kept looking at Jake with those intense dark eyes. "Honored Ambassador," Jake began, feeling awkward but determined to explain everything clearly. "I want to show you how human doors work. I think there may have been some confusion about what I did in the cafeteria last week." Jake walked over to the automatic door at the entrance to the conference room. "This is an automatic door," he said. "It has sensors that detect when someone is approaching." He walked toward the door and it slid open by itself. "See? The door opens automatically when it senses movement." The Zephyrians watched with great interest, their skin colors shifting as they observed the demonstration. Ambassador Veltara spoke to the translator, who said, "The ambassador asks how the door knows to open." Jake explained about motion sensors and computer controls, using simple words that the translator could handle. He showed them the sensor above the door and explained how it worked. Then he moved to a manual door and showed them how the handle worked. "This is a manual door," Jake said, turning the handle and pushing the door open. "Any human can open this kind of door. You just turn the handle and push." He let several of the Zephyrians try opening and closing the door themselves. As the demonstration continued, Jake noticed that Ambassador Veltara's skin colors were changing. The bright gold and purple were fading, replaced by cooler blues and greens. She was asking more questions through the translator, wanting to understand every detail of how doors worked. Jake showed them sliding doors, electronic locks, and even the manual override system that he had used in the cafeteria. He explained that the cafeteria door had been broken, so he had to use a special button to open it. He demonstrated the manual override several times, showing how simple it was. "Any maintenance worker on the station knows how to use this system," Jake said. "It's basic human technology, not anything special or mysterious." When Jake finished his demonstration, the conference room was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador Veltara stood perfectly still, her skin cycling through many different colors very quickly. She seemed to be processing everything she had learned. Finally, Veltara began to speak in her musical language. But this time, instead of sounding serious and formal, her voice had a different quality. She spoke for several minutes, and her skin began to flash in patterns that Jake had never seen before. The translator said, "The ambassador says that she now understands the nature of Jake Morrison's action. She realizes that he was not demonstrating mystical power over impossible barriers, but was showing kindness using common human technology." Veltara continued speaking, and the translator said, "She says that this revelation is both embarrassing and wonderful. She is embarrassed because she misunderstood, but she is wonderful because she has learned something amazing about human culture." Then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Veltara began to laugh. It was a beautiful sound, like silver bells ringing, and soon all the other Zephyrians were laughing too. Their skin colors shifted to bright, happy shades of blue and silver. The ambassador says that your species performs kindness without ceremony or expectation of reward, the translator continued. She says this is perhaps more impressive than mastery over mysterious forces. Jake felt relief wash over him. So you understand that I was just being polite. I wasn't trying to court you or anything like that. Veltara's laughter grew louder, and she said something that made all the other Zephyrians laugh even harder. The translator said, "The ambassador says that Jake Morrison has given her the greatest gift possible, a story so amusing that she will tell it for the rest of her life. She says the tale of the human who accidentally courted an alien by opening a door will become a legend among her people." Dr. Parker stepped forward. "Ambassador, does this mean you understand that Jake was not trying to begin a romantic relationship?" Veltara nodded and spoke in her broken English. "Yes, I understand now. Jake Morrison is kind human, not magical doormaster seeking to court Zephyrian ambassador. I was very foolish but also very entertained." Jake let out a long breath he did not know he had been holding. "I'm glad we could clear this up. I hope I didn't offend you." "Not offended," Veltara said, her skin glowing with warm blue colors. "Grateful. You have taught me much about human culture. Your kindness is real kindness, not show of power. This is a good thing to learn." Over the next few days, the atmosphere on the station became much more relaxed. Ambassador Veltara stopped following Jake around, and there were no more gifts outside his quarters. Instead, she seemed genuinely interested in learning about human technology and culture. She asked Dr. Parker many questions about how humans lived and worked together. On the day before the Zephyrian delegation was scheduled to leave, Ambassador Veltara asked to speak with Jake one more time. They met in the observation lounge where they could look out at the stars together. "Jake Morrison," Veltara said in her careful English, "I want to give you one last gift." She handed him a small crystal that fit in the palm of his hand. Unlike the other crystals she had given him before, this one was simple and clear, with no complex patterns or bright colors. "This crystal will glow when I think of our amusing misunderstanding," Veltara explained. "When you see it glow, you will know that somewhere in the galaxy, a Zephyrian ambassador is telling the story of the kind human who held a door open and accidentally became the most eligible bachelor on the station." Jake laughed and accepted the gift. "I'll treasure it, Ambassador. And I promise to always explain door technology to alien visitors before I help them with anything." Veltara's skin flashed with bright, happy colors. "That is wise policy. Though I think most aliens will not make same mistake as foolish Zephyrian, who does not understand simple human kindness." 6 months later, Jake received a message from Ambassador Veltara. She had returned to her home planet and was engaged to marry a Zephyrian engineer, who had impressed her by demonstrating how antimatter containment fields worked. She included a picture of her future husband proudly explaining complex technology to a group of amazed aliens. The message said, "Dear Jake Morrison, I hope you are well and still opening doors for people who need help. I have found my own doormaster, though his doors are made of energy instead of metal. I think you would like him. He is kind like you, but with better understanding of Zephyrian courtship customs. Thank you for teaching me that the best gifts are the ones we give without expecting anything in return." Jake kept the crystal from Ambassador Veltara on his desk, and it glowed often, reminding him that kindness could have unexpected consequences across the galaxy. He also kept the ceremonial knife she had given him, though he never had occasion to use it. It served as a reminder that sometimes the simplest human gestures could be the most profoundly misunderstood. Commander Rodriguez added a new section to the station's protocol, manual called Cultural Implications of Basic Courtesy, written by Dr. Parker. The manual now included guidelines for interacting with alien species who might not understand common human behaviors. Jake continued his work as a maintenance engineer, but he always made sure to explain human customs to alien visitors before helping them with anything. He never again accidentally courted an alien ambassador, though he did help many beings from different worlds understand how doors, elevators, and other human technologies worked. And whenever he told the story of his accidental romance with Ambassador Veltara, Jake always ended it the same way. Sometimes being human isn't about having the best technology or the strongest weapons. Sometimes it's just about holding doors open for people who need help, even when they don't understand what a door is. After the incident with Amy Foster in the combat challenge, Commander Rodriguez declared a diplomatic emergency. She called all the senior staff to an urgent meeting in the main conference room. Jake sat at the big table feeling embarrassed and confused while important people discussed what to do about his alien admirer. "This situation is getting out of control," Commander Rodriguez said, looking tired and stressed. "Ambassador Veltara has officially challenged one of our officers to combat. The Zephyrian delegation is demanding that we honor their cultural practices, but we can't allow our people to be put in danger." Dr. Lisa Parker sat across the table from Jake, surrounded by books and computer tablets. She had been working non-stop for 3 days, trying to understand Zephyrian culture and figure out what had gone wrong. "I've been studying every piece of information we have about the Zephyrians," Dr. Parker said. "Their culture is very complex with many rules about honor and courtship, but I still don't understand why they think Jake is some kind of romantic hero." Chief of Security Bob Harris spoke up. "Whatever the reason, we need to solve this quickly. Ambassador Veltara is getting more aggressive every day. Yesterday she tried to follow Jake into the men's bathroom. My security team had to physically block her." Jake put his head in his hands. "I just held a door open." "How did that lead to this?" "Tell us again exactly what happened," Dr. Parker said. "Every detail, no matter how small." Jake explained the whole story again. The broken door, the manual override, his polite words to the ambassador. As he talked, Dr. Parker wrote notes and asked questions about everything. "You said the door was broken?" Dr. Parker asked. "Yes, the automatic sensor wasn't working. I had to use the manual override to open it." "And what did Ambassador Veltara do when the door opened?" She seemed surprised. Her skin changed colors really fast and she stared at me. Then she said something to the other Zephyrians and they all got excited. Dr. Parker was quiet for a long moment, thinking hard. Then she asked a question that seemed strange. "Jake, do you know anything about Zephyrian architecture?" "No, why would I?" Dr. Parker started typing quickly on her computer. "I want to check something. Give me a few minutes." While Dr. Parker worked, the other people in the meeting discussed possible solutions to the diplomatic crisis. Some suggested sending Jake away from the station until the Zephyrians left. Others thought they should try to explain human customs to the aliens. But nobody had any good ideas about how to make Ambassador Veltara understand that Jake was not interested in marriage. Suddenly, Dr. Parker looked up from her computer with an expression of amazement on her face. "I think I figured it out," she said. "And it's even stranger than we thought." Everyone turned to look at her. Dr. Parker stood up and activated the big screen at the front of the room. Images appeared showing Zephyrian cities and buildings from their home planet. "Look at these pictures," Dr. Parker said. "Look carefully at the architecture." Jake stared at the images. The Zephyrian buildings were beautiful, with flowing curves and graceful arches. They seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the gifts Veltara had given him. But there was something else about the buildings that seemed strange, though Jake could not figure out what it was. "Do you see it?" Dr. Parker asked. "Look at the entrances to the buildings." Jake looked more closely. The buildings had openings where people could enter and exit, but these openings were just empty spaces. There were no doors, no gates, no barriers of any kind. Every entrance was completely open. "They don't have doors," Jake said, suddenly understanding. "Exactly," Dr. Parker said, her voice excited. "The Zephyrians don't have doors anywhere in their architecture. Their buildings are all open spaces with flowing passages. The concept of a barrier that can be opened and closed is completely foreign to them." Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. "What does that mean?" Dr. Parker pulled up more images showing the inside of Zephyrian buildings. Everything was open and connected, with no walls or barriers anywhere. When Jake opened that door for Ambassador Veltara, she had never seen anything like it before. To her, Jake was demonstrating control over an impossible alien technology. "But it was just a door," Jake said. "To us, yes. But to a Zephyrian, Jake appeared to have magical powers. He was able to command a solid wall to open and allow her to pass through. In their culture, such a display of mysterious power combined with selfless courtesy would be the ultimate romantic gesture." Chief Harris shook his head. "So she thinks Jake is some kind of wizard?" "More than that," Dr. Parker said. "I've been studying Zephyrian courtship customs. They value 3 things above all else: strength, mystery, and selfless acts. Jake appeared to casually manipulate forces beyond her understanding for her benefit, with no expectation of reward. In Zephyrian culture, that makes him the most eligible bachelor in the galaxy." Jake felt sick to his stomach. "Can we explain the misunderstanding to her?" "We can try," Dr. Parker said. "But there's another problem. Zephyrian courtship is very serious. Once an ambassador begins courting someone, refusing without proper cause is considered a grave insult to their entire species. If we handle this wrong, it could destroy the peace treaty between humans and Zephyrians. Commander Rodriguez rubbed her temples. So our options are to let Jake marry an alien or start a war. Not exactly, Dr. Parker said. But we need to be very careful about how we reject her advances. We need to show that Jake is not rejecting her personally, but that there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what happened. Jake looked around the table at all the worried faces. What do you suggest we do? Dr. Parker was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, we need to demonstrate door technology to the entire Zephyrian delegation. We need to show them that doors are common human technology, not magic. Once they understand that any human can open a door, they might realize that Jake's action was normal politeness, not a display of mystical power. You think that will work? Commander Rodriguez asked. It's our best chance, Dr. Parker said. The key is to make them understand that Jake was not demonstrating power over mysterious forces. He was just being polite. Jake thought about this plan. It seemed simple enough, but he was worried about what might happen if it did not work. What if they still don't understand? What if Ambassador Veltara still wants to marry me? Dr. Parker looked at him seriously. Then we'll have to find another solution. But first, let's try to fix the misunderstanding. Sometimes the simplest explanations are the best ones. Commander Rodriguez nodded. All right, Dr. Parker. Set up a demonstration for tomorrow morning. Jake, I want you to be ready to explain door technology to our alien guests. Let's hope this works, because I really don't want to explain to Earth Command why we started a war over a broken door. As the meeting ended, Jake felt a little bit hopeful for the first time in weeks. Maybe once the Zephyrians understood how doors worked, this whole crazy situation would be over. But deep down, he worried that things were not going to be that simple.